Episode 4. Hear Me. The night passed in sleepless, agonizing hours. Time moved excruciatingly slow, but Lada's heart was beating fast. She had a dull headache, and her whole body ached as if she had been working hard instead of resting. But then, that could hardly be called rest. She was in no hurry to get out of bed and didn't respond to the cautious but persistent knocking. "Daughter, it's time to get up." She stifled a groan and buried her face in the pillow. She was feeling dejected and irritable. She was trying not to think about what she had seen right before going to bed. Doesn't that confirm my guess? Varia hasn't left. She stared at her sister's rumpled bed. It looked as if Varia had been sleeping in it all night and had only recently woke up. As if she had only had to go downstairs and be greeted by her smile and one of her stories. Lada jumped to her feet and rushed to Varia's bed, smoothing the sheets, trying to erase all traces of her sister's presence. "You're dead, you're gone." There was a lot of work awaiting her. She had to pull herself together and finally get dressed. We have patched up, new, and one of your favorites. Alright, let me think about this one. Guess I'll go with this one. Hairstyle, sleek, unusual. It's pretty. Wet. With a cocoa schnick. Everything. Now we're sticking to red hair, except for the first one. It's weird. Yeah, I accept. She took another look at Varia's bed. She flung open the door and rushed out of the room. She ran downstairs and gaining speed, collided with an obstacle that had suddenly appeared in front of her. Her forehead had slammed into someone's chest. She let out a confused groan and, rubbing her head, took a step back. "Watch where you're going." "What are you doing here?" The restless night had caught up with her. She felt a flash of irritation along with an aching desire to take it out on Dragon. "Don't worry, I'm not here to see you." My father must have called him. This isn't any easier for my parents, and in some aspects they have it even tougher than me. Her anger subsided, and she calmed down, but together with her rage, even the last of her energy seemed to have disappeared. "Then go. My father must be waiting for you." "He's waiting for you, too." "I'll go see him later. When you leave." "Are you alright? You look terrible." His gaze shifted from her face to her clothes. "Did you sleep in your clothes?" She ignored his words. She didn't care what she looked like. All her thoughts were occupied by her sister's ghost. I picked that outfit. It was quite nice, thank you." Insulting prick. Dragan seemed about to say something, but his face changed as he noticed Lada's sullen look. "You're blocking my way." Without waiting for her to move away, he grabbed her by the shoulders and pushed her aside. She felt like a sack of potatoes that had been tripped over and carelessly thrown into a corner. She heard her father's voice coming from another room. "Where's Lada?" "She didn't sleep well. She needs rest." Lada pursed her lips as she heard once again the friendly tone Dragan never used with her. She quickly left the house before her parents could give her enough work to last her until sunset. She had something else to deal with. Tada's house was a simple one, with a sagging roof and a broken porch. She used to live there with her grandmother, but a few years earlier the woman had died. Tada did all the housework now and took care of the house as best as she could, but time and poverty had taken their toll. Lotta knocked once, and the door immediately swung open. The uninvited guest froze with her fist in the air, taken aback by such speed. "I'm sorry to intrude. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Hi." Lada stood there uncomfortably, trying to choose her words carefully, but Tada seemed to understand her without the need to speak. "You want to talk about your sister?" Why else would Lada come to visit her? "Yes." She stepped forward and closed the door awkwardly so that Lada wouldn't look inside the house, and said, "Let's go to the backyard." Is she embarrassed? Lada came from a wealthy family. She had never known poverty and intuitively understood Tata's motive. It was... I want to say pride, but also shame. We'll go with shame. Tata didn't want anyone to see how she lived, especially someone like Lada, since her family had everything they needed for a quiet, decent life. Everything except Varia. Lada nodded understandingly. "Come on." Tata sat down on a bench and patted the space next to her. Lana joined her. For a moment, they didn't say anything, staring straight ahead. They felt awkward, hesitant. Where to begin? What was the other thinking about? How much to say and how much to leave out? "Anyway, about..." "I wanna..." They both spoke at once and then immediately stopped, embarrassed. "Go ahead." "You first. You're the one who came to see me." "All right." Lana sighed. "I want to find out who killed Varia, and I don't want to sit idly by and wait anymore." Vera got excited, turned to face Lana, and took her hands in hers. "Finally!" Lana got embarrassed, and Tata hurriedly let go. "What made you change your mind?" Keep silent about the strange happening. Only tell her about the ghost. Only tell her about the birthmark. Tell her everything. Why not? Lana hesitated. It was too risky to tell her everything, but if she wanted to help, she needed to trust someone. Lana rolled her sleeve up and held out her hand to Tata to look at her wrist. "When Varia died, our birthmarks changed." "Did Hannah's change too?" "Yes, I checked." Tata stared at her hand thoughtfully. "What does it mean?" "I thought you'd tell me." "How should I know? You should go ask the High Priestess." Lana pulled her sleeve back down. "What if it's some kind of curse? What then?" "Even if it's a curse, they'll help you." "What if they just banish me?" "You're too careful." "And you're too careless." Ada pouted and turned away, not on offense, but just thinking. "There's more." "I saw Varia's soul in the mirror." "You looked in a mirror? But why?" "I felt her presence. She's still here. She hasn't left." Ada smoothed down her hair nervously. "No wonder. She must have been killed by someone in the village. Varia wants us to find her murderer. Maybe then we'll find out what happened to your birthmark." You told Tata the whole truth and she appreciates it. There was another awkward pause. "We have to start somewhere." "Were there any marks on Varia's body? Blood? Bruises?" "No. Had there been any, everything would be much clearer. Did you notice anything strange about her before she died? Lara shook her head and then seemed to remember something and frowned. What is it? She argued with Dragon at the vernal equinox. Are you sure? I only remember Vlas. I'm sure. Blinding a white light. Do you want me dead? Don't speak of what you don't know. Right, how could I forget? She started crying. Then you should talk to him first. Why me? You have known him since you were children. Like all of us. Not like that. He won't tell me anything. What's going on between you two? Why do you dislike each other so much? Varia loved you both. Lotta shrugged, irritably casting her eyes to the ground, and told her in detail keep her answer vague. You'd better ask him. I'm asking you. Lada began biting the inside of her cheek, trying to collect her thoughts, but in the end she decided to tell Tata. We used to be friends, but after his mother left him, he changed. Stop it with the white light! Vincina left her family, abandoned them. Dragan had been very close to his mother. It was a blow to him. He was in tears. It was the first time he cried in front of us, and the only time I ever saw him cry. I spotted him from a distance, heard him sobbing, and ran to him. I stopped behind him and hugged him. Dragan stopped abruptly, then jumped to his feet and turned to me. Dragan, everything will be fine. You think so too? He clenched his fists until they were trembled. You're just like her. What are you talking about? Dragan blushed. He went to say something, wanted it so bad that his chest heaved with big, nervous breaths, but he restrained himself, looked away, and muttered, Never mind. I held out my hand to him. Let's go play. Do you want to? I didn't know how to calm him down. I was trying to act as if everything was normal, but that only seemed to make him angry. Leave me alone. He pushed me, and I fell. For a moment, fear and regret flashed in his eyes, but they quickly disappeared from his rage-twisted face. I'm sick of you. Dragan! Varia ran up to me and helped me up. Dragan, what are you doing? Varia fixed my hair just like our mother used to. Gotta go home. I nodded, barely hearing what she was saying. Dragan, come on. Varia took his hand, but he didn't move, still looking at me with a strange expression on his face. Come on! Varia dragged him away with her. They went down the river, and I fell back to the ground. I sat there at a distance, choking back my tears, and watched as they talked, as Dragan shared his secrets with her. Forgotten. Left out. What had happened to him? I don't know. Have you hated each other since? It's been building up slowly, like a snowball. He was curt with me, so I tried to avoid him. Then he grew distant, and I still hoped that our relationship would warm up. But as soon as we even got closer, Dragan made it clear that he didn't want that. When did you learn to accept it? One day, I heard something. That was a few months ago. I was walking home. A group of men were sitting at a table drinking. I slowed down when I heard my name and hid behind a tree. Dragan and Kalman were sitting together. Maybe it's time for me to find a wife. Otherwise, all the good ones will be taken. It's easy for you. You have more than you could ever want. What are you talking about? You have two girls right next to you. Won't be long before they will want to get married. Nada isn't even seeing anyone. She must be saving herself for someone special, I guess. Definitely not for you. Dugan took a long sip from his cup. I'm not interested in shepherdness. He said that with such disdain that I hung my head. Any woman would have felt hurt. Was I really that bad looking? What about Varia? You're nice to her. Shut up. They're twins. They're similar. Varia is nothing like her sister. His voice is full of irritation, as if Calman didn't understand something obvious. You're right. Varia's cheerful, but there are a lot of men chasing her. Perhaps I should be the one chasing the shepherdess. She's a loner, it'll be easy to charm her. Why are you looking so glum? Are you thinking about the shepherdess? Enough about this. And if you keep mixing up... If you get mixed up with her, don't even come near me again. You hate her. That much. Yes. You'd better find someone more interesting. And stop yapping anyway, you're annoying me. I hid in the shadows, and I changed my path to avoid meeting them. They spoke about me so disparagingly, it weighed heavily on my soul. My naive, childish idea that men treat women with tenderness and respect was shattered by the cruel truth. Jagran wasn't my friend, and I couldn't stand Kelman. I mean, that goes both ways. I'm just saying, you couldn't stand Kelman. I'm just saying. I decided I was doing everything right by avoiding contact with people like them. And yet Dragan... I mean, you had once been friends, so... You remembered your past with Dragan, including blinding white light, holy shit. Including the fact that you were once friends. But why did he take a dislike to you, of all the people? I don't know. Sometimes you don't need a reason to dislike a person, that's all. You know, I can't stand Vlas either, but I'll talk to him for Varia's sake. Do you think he might be involved? I don't know, but it's worth talking to him, right? Lana hung her head, paralyzed by thoughts of her sister. Her life had lost its colors, and her path had tangled. She had to learn to live again. Not because she didn't know how, but because she couldn't find a middle ground between her life and Varia's death. Siren said that Varia would follow me around until the gods called her. Is it because we're sisters? I'm the only one who can help her. She's mad at me. No. Or we're bound. Bound by blood and birthmarks. That ignored the question, clinging to a single word. Did you say Siren? So you're afraid of her too? Don't get friendly with her, Lotta. She's a witch. So what? So what? Is that not enough for you? I just don't see what the big deal is. Got aside, shook her head, and smiled suddenly. Do you like her that much? I like her. I mean, I just met the damn woman. She's beautiful and kind. No, not at all. She seems like a nice person. She just doesn't seem bad. I'm gonna go with she seems like a nice person. She did give you the herbs for the tea, which did help your mom. Witches with an evil eye. Can't be nice. What else did she tell you? Nothing special. She has an evil eye. Don't let her drag you away like Varia. If you cross her, she will look you in the eye and tell you that you will die soon. 3 days, and you'll... Had to draw a finger across her throat. Go meet the gods. Don't be ridiculous. Leaves rustled in the wind, carrying the sound of an alarmed voices. What's going on? Lotta and Tata turned and hurried to the road to find out. The villagers were rushing towards the forest. Lana saw a dozen more people in the distance. Shall we follow them? Of course. Let's hurry. Tana hitched the hem of her dress above her knees and rushed off towards the others. Lana tried to keep up. Hidden among the tall, slender pines stood the sacred oak, surrounded by a ring of mosses and ferns. Its bark, cracked and covered with lichens, resembled an ancient ruins, the roots intertwined like vines bursting out of the ground. Thick, twisting branches stretched towards the sky, trying to catch the rare glimpses of the sun. Once evergreen, the oak leaves were yellow and withered. Vincinia was leaning against the trunk and screaming, doubled over as if trying to squeeze out every last sound of her body. Look at it! It's been shedding its leaves for days now. It won't be long before it dies. There was only one oak tree left in the village, ancient and strong. It was the last thread keeping the settlement from demise, from the icy, wet touch of the fog. And now it was dying. And hope was dying with it. Would they suffer the same fate as the tree? Lost in the darkness, they would sink into oblivion. First the girl, now the oak tree. She looked from one person to the other, glaring at them reproachfully. A hermit, Vincina, hadn't left her refuge for a long time, but the villagers had seen too much of her over the past few days. Behold! It's time for a change. That's enough. Durgan pushed through the crowd, making his way to his mother. When he reached her, he grabbed her hand and was about to lead her away when the elder arrived, accompanied by the priestess. Wait. She's right. What happens if the oak tree dies? Won't the Haze take us? The villagers were worried. A wave of anxious whispers rolled through the crowd. Another thing to reflect on. But why did Varia's death, of all things, set these events in motion? Or maybe her demise is just one of the links in the chain. The elder hurried to reassure everyone, shooting a warning glance at the priestess. Let's not panic. We still have seeds. We'll try to plant a new oak tree. Not a single oak tree has taken root for many years. We've tried so many times. Don't despair. The priests will help us. Sacrifice roosters. We need the favor of the gods. The elder glanced at the priestess, and she echoed his words obediently. Be on your guard. Don't part with your amulets. Visit the shrines and trust the priests and, most importantly, the gods. We've been through worse. A woman stepped out from the crowd, holding out a trembling finger. It's that girl, the witch! She cursed us. She's brought trouble upon us. Distraught, the others joined in with a chorus of shouts. Drive her away, you cursed vermin! That witch should be forbidden to come so close to the sacred tree. It's her fault it died. Siren, who had been blended into the crowd, now was the center of attention. She was surrounded by scared, furious people who were pointing the fingers at her, spewing curses, spitting, and humiliating her. The woman stood still without defending herself, stoically enduring the blows. She looked up and met another pair of eyes, the only ones that didn't show fear. Tara squeezed Lana's hand nervously and whispered in her ear, Don't look her in the eye. Calm down. But people's anger, like an avalanche rolling down a mountainside, was difficult to stop. Siren hurried away without looking back, ignoring the insults thrown at her. Even though their words landed on her turned back, they pierced her heart, hit her throat, and stung her eyes. Why are they being so cruel? I'll be right back. Where are you going? Lana! Lana pushed through the riled up, outraged crowd. She ran down the path into the forest and, out of breath, shouted for Siren to finally stop. Wait. Siren glanced over her shoulder and said wearily, "What is it now?" Lana held up her finger, urging her to wait a few seconds until she could catch her breath, and then said, "I'm sorry." Siren watched as she came closer to her, turned her whole body to face Lana, and asked sharply, "You're sorry?" "They're just scared." "I know. But why are you apologizing on their behalf?" "Because they won't." Siren looked at Lana and couldn't help but smirk. Her heart felt heavy like a piece of lead, like the howling of a wounded wolf. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she managed to say, "You shouldn't talk to me in front of others, or they will start shunning you." Lana gave a cheerful, almost childlike, innocent laugh. "I'm already considered a fool." She took a step towards the witch. "Can't spin, can't cook, can't do anything right. Clumsy and foolish. Soon there will be another thing added to the list. A witch." Lana closed her lips, wondering if she should ask the question before spinning in her head. "Have you ever wished anyone dead?" Siren was silent for a long moment, then met Lana's questioning gaze boldly without shame. She finally said resolutely, honestly, "Yes." Lana looked down. "So stay away from me, go back to the others." Siren turned around and walked away, but she called after her, "I'll come to visit you again anyway." Lana ran back without giving the witch a chance to forbid her to do so. Siren picked up a pine cone from the ground and turned it over in her hands. A silent pain squeezed in her chest like an old scar. It made itself felt only when Siren had a glimpse of hope. She hated that feeling. She squeezed the pine cone, rubbing it between her fingers, crushing it into small pieces. Silly. Why would Lana want to become friends? Get closer. I mean, really, there's only one person in this village so far I can stand, so, and they're the black sheep of the whole entire book, so, get closer, why not? Lana returned to the oak tree. The crowd was still agitated, alarmed. Tara didn't ask what she had been talking about with Siren. The elder struck the ground with his staff, calling for silence. "Let's honor Purin. Give him strength so that he can help us grow a new tree." The villagers' indignation began to subside. The elder told everyone to go home. Then Senia held out her hands towards the dispersing people. "Don't be deceived by the silence. The leaves are falling and the haze is coming. This isn't good, this isn't good!" "Stop it." Tata gently touched Lana's shoulder. She whispered, "His mother knows something. Why don't you ask her about Varia?" Lana sighed. "And you talked of loss." "I remember what I promised." She gave her a small push. "Come on." Lana approached Vincinia, looking awkwardly back at Tata for support. She silently mouthed, "You can do this for Varia." Dragran squeezed his mother's arm as if he was afraid that she would rush after the villagers, trying to convince them of her delusions. "Why did you come back after all these years when they began to forget about you?" "One day you'll understand." "Never. I've been trying to for too long." Dragran stopped mid-sentence. What do you want?" His stare pinned Lana to the spot. His furious tone hit her in the chest, knocking out all the air and thoughts. She bit down on her lip until it bled. Oh, Tata, I came at the wrong moment. Vincinia smiled affectionately. Wrinkles appeared at the corner of her eyes. She used to smile a lot, but so much time had passed since then that only those deep lines were a reminder of the past. She was called a harlot, a fool, a mad woman. And for what reason? For those whose sake she decided to leave her husband and son and retire to a shabby house on the outskirts of the village. A lover, maybe the elder, had raised his hands against her. There were a lot of rumors, but she never denied anything. Her own son's hatred was more eloquent than any speculation. Lara, you've grown up, my girl. Do you remember me? Yes, but I've forgotten a great deal. I understand. She glanced at her son, who continued glaring at Lara, his eyes burning with rage. I'll come to see you later. Could you give us a moment? He spoke slowly, enunciating every word carefully. He forced a smile, but it looked like a scowl. All right, but I wanted to talk to Vincinia. Why? Do you want to ask about your sister? She looked at Dragon again. She raised her affectionate, apologetic eyes to him. And then she returned her attention to Lara. I can't tell you anything. I'm sorry. I will say one thing. Everything is predestined. Everything repeats. Everything will happen again. Dragan doesn't understand, but that's enough. It's time for you to go. Lara was taken aback when Dragon's fingers wrapped around her arm and led her away. What are you doing? Let go of me. But he wasn't listening to her. He led her further into the forest until they were alone. He pushed Lara away and ruffled his hair nervously. Is this your way of getting revenge? What are you talking about? That woman. He can't even say her name out loud. She's sick. She came out of hiding to attract attention. And you throw poisoned meat to a hungry wolf. I didn't even have a chance to ask her anything. He chuckled. Don't go near her. Don't talk to her. But she knows something. Maybe she can help me find Varia's killer. She doesn't know anything. This doesn't concern you. Varia shouldn't have to suffer because you hate your mother. He clenched his jaw. Lara realized she had said something awful. She didn't have time to lighten the conversation. She didn't even know if she wanted to, as he exploded. Varia is gone. I understand what you feel, that you feel so worthless that you don't know how to live without her, but you don't need to play with some other people's delusions to ease your pain. He always knew how to hurt her. He didn't need to raise his voice or lay a hand on her. He could just whisper one word and her heart would just start bleeding. It would bleed until she convinced herself that she didn't care about other people's opinions. But he realized that Lara had been silent for too long. He finally looked into her eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't... You're talking about yourself, not me. You're only mad at yourself. She shoved him in the chest and walked past him. Wait. But she didn't even look back. Damn it. Tata. Tata returned to the village in search of Vlas. She was quite nervous, but she tried not to show it. She nodded and smiled at the people she met, asking how they were doing, as if they were well. She tried to be polite and friendly. Tata found Vlas drunk, lying behind someone's barn. She kicked him to wake him up and immediately looked around to make sure no one had noticed. He deserved it. Hey, you! What do you want? What did you do after the vernal equinox? What? Get out of here. No one's... Girl, you don't have enough friends, so you've come to me. Did you see Varia after the dance? Boss hiccuped, rolled onto his side, and threw an empty wineskin at her. Why would I want to see her, curse her? Tata grabbed his shirt and shook him angrily. Bite your tongue, don't you dare say that, you drunkard. Boss laughed, his breath reeking about all. Poor, no one's girl. You're alone again. No one cares about you. Who's going to protect you now? Tata pushed him away roughly. Drunk Floss hit the wall of the house and slumped to the ground laughing. He cried out as she went away, still laughing. No one's good. No one wants you. Oh, I wish karma was a thing. Just you wish it on someone like that. Lana was almost running, scratching her bare hands on the branches and bushes. She arrived at the hut cemetery and sat down opposite the place where Varia now rested. Worthless. Dragan had just said out loud what was always on her mind. Yes, sometimes she really considered herself worthless. A fool who had trouble connecting with people and tripped over her own feet. She could only stare in awe as her sister easily did everything that was so hard for her. Fairy had been her guiding star, her dawn at sunset. She had taken on everything that Lotta couldn't or didn't want to do. She had allowed Lotta to remain strange and free. She had given her opportunity to be herself. And now that Varia was gone, Lotta... We have convinced herself that she was seeing her sister's ghost. I was glad she was being haunted by her sister's ghost. Because now she could at least do something for Varia. Lotta held her legs against her body and hid her face in her knees. Maybe I'm worthless because I feel sorry for myself. But I won't do that anymore. I can't live without her. I can't be myself without her. Another argument with Dragan had brought her to the edge, and now she had fallen. Lana suddenly felt wings sprout from her back. She couldn't fly yet, but now that she had wings, she could learn. Lana raised her head. Am I imagining things? She got to her feet and stared intently at the boarded-up door of her sister's hut. I don't understand. Banging noise came from the other side of the door. Something was trying to get out. Lana backed away, her lips whispered anxiously. You will go down those roads, through the deep forest, through the swamps. The door shook and groaned under the hail of blows. You will go from mountain to the underworld's gates. The sky, already gray and dull, suddenly clouded over. Someone's claws screeched against the wood, trying to break free. The forest grew cold, freezing air rose from the damp ground, piercing her with its icy breast needles. In the deep cellars, behind the dark forest, Lotta kept whispering, as if the incantation could help her get rid of the infernal creature that had suddenly woken up on the other side of the door. It couldn't be Varia, right? Lana kept backing away until she felt someone's warmth behind her. Living energy burst into the kingdom of death. She screamed and turned around and fell to the ground, right to the feet of the High Priestess. "What's going on, my dear?" The priestess bent down and helped her up. "What scared you?" "Didn't you hear?" "What are you talking about?" Nothing. Did that really just happen, or do I see and hear things that aren't there? The priestess looked at Various hut, covered in moss. It now seemed frozen in time, ready to stand there for centuries in the rain, snow, and away from sunlight. A coffin, a house, a fortress. The huts protected the dead from evil spirits and protected the living from the dead, but what was it like inside, in the dark, with no windows, no doors? "How are you, sister? Are you cold?" The priestess looked at Lana, still gripped by fear. She was shivering, holding her shoulders and casting anxious glances at Various hut. "Let's go. Sometimes this place makes me feel uneasy." Lana could hardly contain her relief. "Yes, let's get out of here." They returned to the forest and walked towards the village. Lana felt awkward about the priestess. She still inspired fear in Lana, but awe as well, as she was someone who could penetrate into other dimensions. As if reading her mind, the priestess said, "You know, there are people who are born with the unique gift of being able to see things that are hidden from others." "Like the priests." "That's right. You could become my grandson's student." "But why me?" "You see and hear things that others don't notice. Don't you?" "But it never happened before." "Priests cannot see from birth, like a child cannot speak as soon as they are born. Everything has its time." Lana thought about it. If I become a priestess, I will be able to help my sister and free her and myself from the burden of the past. I will be able to find my way, relying only on myself, without worrying about Varia or anyone else. "Have you found out what happened to my sister?" The priest sighed. "The villagers are worried. They all suspect each other. The elder is being cautious. He doesn't want his neighbors to accuse each other of murder." "Does he think it was done by a human?" "Yes. He's asking people what they were doing and where they were when Varia was attacked." "What do you think?" The priestess stopped, ran her hand through the air as if trying to grab the floating cloud of fog, and then walked on. "I think we shouldn't turn a blind eye to the truth just because it scares us." They came out of the forest. The houses appeared like engraving, barely visible between the scattering of mist. "Here's Ozar." Ozar was standing at the crossroads, talking animatedly with Kalman. He was smiling broadly, responding to his jokes. Lana caught herself thinking that she hadn't seen the Magus smile before, or maybe she just hadn't noticed. The priestess walked towards her grandson, and Lana had to follow her. With each step, she felt her cheek grow hotter, and the heat seemed to spread from her face to her shoulders and chest. Ozar watched them approach without taking his eyes off her. Should I apologize for eavesdropping? No, it's stupid. I'll pretend that nothing happened. Priestess. Good afternoon. Ozar, you're familiar with Varia's sister, aren't you? We haven't actually had a chance to talk properly. Why is he looking at me like that? Lana tried to look anywhere but into his eyes. Lana, right? Kelman smiled a charming, friendly smile. Yes, that's right. Do you remember my name, after all? Lada wants to become your student. It was her idea. My student. We'll discuss it later. Ozark turned his gaze back to Lada, that time more focused. Lada, will you come by tomorrow? All right. Lada said goodbye and wanted to leave, but as she passed Ozar, he blocked her way and whispered in her ear so that no one else could hear. Aren't you afraid to come visit me after what you overheard? She didn't turn her head and walked on, showing no reaction to the Magus's words. Without turning around, she hurried home, but she could feel his eyes boring into her back. Loneliness. Lana hadn't even known the word before. Now it tightened around her neck like a noose every time she was alone in her room. When the sky turned black, dragging her soul into a hopeless gloom. Worthless. No, she wasn't worthless. Lana pulled the blanket to her neck and closed her eyes. I will become a priestess, solve the mystery of my sister's death, and find my way. Meanwhile, Dragan was looking for peace at the bottom of a cup. Velot and Sorin were thinking. The night passed quickly. I'm gonna go with Velot and Siren. Velot was sitting on the porch. The sleeves of his shirt were rolled up to his elbows, and his hands were covered in blood and fur. He was skinning a hare, holding it over a small bucket. He stopped from time to time, looking up at the starry sky. The night air was cold, but reinvigorating. He loved evenings like that. When no one was scurrying around, casting timid glances at his house. When he didn't have to go into the forest or wander through the fog, being careful not to go too far. The door opened, and Siren quietly stepped out onto the porch, almost without making a sound. She sat down on the step next to him. Are you going into the Haze again tomorrow? Yes. Why? Don't ask those questions. Mullet always spoke to her coldly and abruptly, but Siren wasn't hurt by his tone. That woman... I forbid you to speak of her. You forbid me. We won't talk about her. Why not? Siren chuckled. All right, as you wish. She fixed her eyes on the grey mist in the distance, dense, trembling as if alive. Bullet followed her gaze. He put the carcass in the bucket and wiped his hands on a towel. He hated the fog, the nest of the shadows and devoured destinies where he could still hear the echoes of other people's suffering. The scars on Volit's body burned, responded to his inner rage. His large hands and rough palms were designed to chop and crush bones, shed blood, and look monsters in the eyes. 18 years earlier, he had looked at the world beyond and was never going to be able to unsee it. He had looked without blinking and never closed his eyes. It was time to go to bed, but he didn't want to. He knew he was going to have nightmares again, but his nightmares had now taken on a new face. Will you find Various Killer? Are you worried about her soul? Yes, and about her sister. Wallet put the bucket aside and stretched out his legs. He looked huge next to Siren, almost too large for an ordinary man, but Siren looked at him calmly, even defiantly. To a casual observer, it might have looked as if Siren was confident in her power over him. But at the same time, the illusionary power was kindly linked to her by someone who could take it away from her at any moment. Did you feel anything next to her body? Did you sense the evil spirits? No. So it was done by a human. I don't know that either. I see. Barry's death was probably going to remain another mystery in that remote village. Violet remembered Lana's face. It was almost expressionless. Lana didn't cry, scream, curse, or even smile, trying to convince herself that there was nothing sad about death. She seemed to be somewhere far away. Perhaps she hadn't yet accepted her loss, or maybe didn't care about it at all. You said that Varia's spirit is still here. I'm not sure, but the candles went out when Lana entered. Stay away from her. Maybe I will, but can you do the same? He frowned. Of course, Cyrano realized that his thoughts were now preoccupied by that woman. She had turned out to be the key that opened one of the 1,000 doors leading to the bottom of the fiery river. That girl needs to be protected, just as the whole village. From whom? From me, and from the evil spirits. Tyrion frowned. She understood everything. Violet doesn't want to hurt you. So it is fine if Lana falls victim to the wrath of the villagers. If they deem her cursed, then... Violet got up. It's getting late. We'd better not make the evil spirits thirsty. Let's go inside. Tyrion looked at the hateful village once again. Perhaps Lana was going to cause the death of all the villagers stuck on the outskirts. Tyrion would have liked that. Meanwhile, I'm gonna pass underground. The night passed quickly. It was almost dawn, but Lana kept tossing around in her bed, still lost in the illusions of sleep. Path of High Tides. She was sitting on the riverbank, dipping her toes into the water, and then lifting them above the surface, letting the light breeze brush away the droplets. Lana! Very was running towards her across the field, her hair streaming behind her and her basket swinging from side to side. Are you done? Varia hugged her from behind, and they almost fell into the river. Lana straightened up with her laugh and helped her sister sit down without falling head first. I'm so tired. I've been to so many houses delivering things. My feet are killing me. But I met Tata, and we had a nice chat. How did you spend your time? I've been shearing sheep all day. We're going dancing tonight. Do you want to come with? No, Varia hugged her, interrupting her mid-sentence. Yes, I know what you'll say. I'm not going to force you to come. But it would be great if you loved people the same way you love animals. Or the same way I love you. I want you to make friends with Tata, and not to be angry with Dragan. I want you to always be there for me. Then I would be even happier. I'm always there for you. What if we're separated? Barry's voice became lower and lost its colors. She looked at her birthmark. What if our bond is broken? 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 Her voice resounded in Lana's head, echoing erratically over and over again, and then faded away. Lana opened her eyes. I hate the white light. She inhaled sharply as if suffocating. Her heart was pounding wildly. Her skin crawled at the feeling that she had been watched. Bad dreams. Bad dreams again. Lana put her feet on the floor and looked around anxiously. Birds were singing outside the window and the sun was shining, but the room felt dark and cold, as if deep underground. Lana couldn't get rid of the feeling that Vera was there, in that bedroom. Her icy breath crept under Lana's clothes and froze her cheeks. Her eyes bore into her back as if forcing her to pay attention to her sister. I'm losing my mind. A lot around her fingers. Her hair tugged at it, as if she wanted to peel off all of her worries along with her scalp. Then her eyes fell on Varia's bed. Swear to God, if it's the doll again. Every evening, Lotta made her sister's bed, but every morning, it was crumpled again. The pillow still bore the impression of her head, and the sheet was wrinkled, the blanket was half hanging off the side. Varia was dead, but she still slept in her bed every night. I give you a 5, I guess. Alright, so we got 1 Haze, 0 Reality, 1 Ties, 0 Determination, and 5 Compassion. Alright, so that is it for the episode. Well, got my diamonds and whatnot. So if you did enjoy the video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Head down the description, plenty of things to check out there, ways to support and whatnot. Also leave a comment down in the comment section below letting me know what your thoughts on the video were. Aside from that, yeah, no, getting around to this stuff. This month we're a little bit ahead, and you know, pretty much just to give you just the gist of it. And a lot of these things that we've been covering, right, it's all in development. We're waiting for the update, which is coming out in the end of September. Yeah. So, yeah, right now is the perfect time for me to be catching up on, right now, Haze. Looks like there's at least another episode coming out on that. Callie, we're still doing. And then there's some people who've requested that, you know, Soulless and Arcanum, and, like, everyone's, like, jumping around to different books. And don't worry, I'm going to be trying to cover those books ASAP. But right now, we're just kind of, you know, slowly pacing ourselves, right? There's been a lot going on in my life, health-wise, that too, and just slowly but surely, I've been trying to cover this and get out at least a couple chapters a week. There for a minute I was doing 1 chapter, or may I say episode, whichever you want to call it. Was doing one of those a day. So again, I'm trying to get on top of these things and catch up, I guess you could say. But other than that, thanks again for watching. Catch y'all later. Peace out.